In the deep recesses of one's mind, there is a voice, a guiding light through the darkness, a connection to the other side.
You're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just a little, poor little me.
A pathway to spiritual that echoes with enlightenment. The voice of spirit.
The voice of spirit.
You are a function of this total galaxy, bounded by the Milky Way, and that furthermore, this galaxy is a function of all other galaxies.
Your journey starts here and now. With your host and connection to spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Hi, welcome to Core Radio. Welcome to the program. Myself, Leo Bonomo, and the Voice of Spirit Radio. So we've got a wonderful guest that I really admire, and I know I get excited about a lot of my guests, but this is a gentleman that I really do admire. We have some fantastic evidence in lots of different ways through something called the Scole Experiment and physical mediumship. And I know that many listeners out there may not really be aware of what physical mediumship is. So that's something that we're going to discuss. What I will say first off is that there's an organisation called the Spiritual Science Foundation, which is connected to Robin Foy, and we need as many members to sign up as possible, and it is just €20 per annum membership fee. So if that's something that you would want to do after listening to the program, that will be very, very welcome. You can also donate to this program if you want to make a donation to it, and I'd just briefly like to mention my book as well, Summerland, which you can find on Amazon. It's available worldwide, and so do have a look for that. So without any further ado, a very, very warm welcome to Robin Foy. Hi, Robin. How are you?
Hi, Leo. Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm not doing too badly out here in Spain.
Fantastic. Now, for people that may not understand what physical mediumship is, because there are lots of myths and people have misunderstandings and etc. Can you briefly explain what physical mediumship is?
Yes, certainly. There are two types of mediumship. One of the types is called mental mediumship. And during mental mediumship, the medium is able to actually see spirit themselves. That's known as clairvoyance. Clairvoyance, sorry. And it's only the medium that's actually able to see the spirit person. But then the medium is seeing them mentally, but can pass that information on to the sitters who are there with him. Otherwise, a medium can hear the spirit people, and that's known as clairaudience. That means that, again, the medium in that case is the only one who's able to hear the spirit people, and they can pass on those messages to the audience and the sitters that they have with them. With physical mediumship, it's totally different. It's rather like chalk and cheese, because with physical mediumship, everybody who is present can see and hear and feel what's going on. So in other words, the phenomena that you're able to witness during physical mediumship is quite real. You can have spirit people who are quite solid in the room with you, who are teleported. And again, there are even two different ways of producing phenomena by physical mediumship. The first one of these is the one which people will probably think of as the traditional method, and that involves a substance called ectoplasm. In that case, the medium usually is in absolutely deep trance, and in that deep trance, they're able to exude this substance called ectoplasm, which is then able, with the help of a spirit team, to be built up into a totally solid spirit personality, who can then speak sometimes in their own voices. Also in this category is what's known as independent voice, and that means that spirit people are talking to everybody in the room in a voice that's coming from midair. So it doesn't come out of the throat of the medium in deep trance. It is purely and simply physical, and it's totally different, because anything that happens in this way usually means that the spirit personality who's present, or the independent voice that's speaking, are speaking in their own voice when they were on Earth, which in itself is extremely evidential, of course, because the medium would never have known exactly what the voice of that personality would sound like.
Yes, I was blessed myself to sit with Leslie Flint once, and
oh, great!
That was a stunning experience. And as you say, you know, the voice appears with Leslie appeared 6 or 7 inches below the ceiling. But a fantastic thing to have, you know, to physically converse like you and I are, you know, with intelligent people, or sometimes not so intelligent, but of their age, you know, whatever age that might be.
Absolutely. And I mean, I was lucky enough myself to know Leslie personally, and we sort of went to his funeral in the end, but we sat with him 25 times plus. So over the years, we got a very good sort of chance to see so many different and hear so many different communicators through Leslie.
Yeah, and it's I mean, it's amazing. I know from conversations with Larry Taylor that since the early 50s up to, I think Leslie passed in 93, there was something like over 6,000 recordings, which is completely amazing.
That's quite correct, yeah. And he has an educational trust, or there is an educational trust that's now sort of looking after all his recordings that survive.
Yes, it's a wonder, because I know sometimes skeptics, and we'll talk about skeptics from time to time during this program, but I know skeptics would say, well, you know, he's throwing his voice, he's doing this and that, but even the most successful imitators and people that are mimic people, you're probably realistically looking at maybe 500 or 600. I know they often used to use the phrase "man of 1,000 voices."
Yes,
it's quite some feat, but to have over 6,000 recordings, you know, he would have been the best in the world if he'd chosen to gone that way. I do want to make people aware that if anyone is really interested in this, there's an excellent site, and it's called the Scole Experiment.com. Now, Scole's a small village in England, and it's spelled SCOLE. So if you want to go to that site, it's www.thescoleexperiment.com. So it's literally the Scole Experiment, all one word, .com. And there's some fantastic evidence and stories that we can see on there. And there are a number of books as well, aren't there, Robin?
Yeah, there are indeed. I mean, I've written 2 books myself. The first one was called In Pursuit of Physical Mediumship. And that one is available from Amazon if anybody wants it. But it gives the story of all the years before Scole, basically, and the first part of the Scole Experiment, all the wonderful things that we witnessed at that time. And the second book is called Witnessing the Impossible, and that's basically about the Scole Experiment. And it's the only book that actually has details of every single sitting of the Scole Experiment, which went out between 1993 and 1998, and we witnessed over 1,000 hours of phenomena and communication with the spirit world during that time.
And again, I think for people that are very new to this, or quite astounded that spirit can appear, walk, talk, shake hands, you know, do various things, and I'm sure that they're amazed that some are amazed that can happen at all, but to have so much evidence. The evidence varied, didn't it? Because there was such an expanse of of evidence, wasn't there?
Well, so many different things happened, and so many different types of evidence took place in there. I mean, for instance, we actually had 5 different ways of communicating directly with spirit at Scole. And that was absolutely amazing. I mean, to begin with, there was deep trance because both the 2 mediums who were working with us at Scole were in deep trance throughout. So unfortunately, my wife Sandra and I were the only people in the world that had the opportunity to witness all 1,000 hours of phenomena because the 2 mediums were in trance. And I mean, that was quite amazing. And in that deep trance, the spirit were able to speak directly to us. And it was through that they were able to give us instructions and help and advice for us to be able to develop the phenomena.
Yeah, because as you and I know, and as we discussed shortly before the program started, it's very much a collaboration, isn't it? It's called an experiment for a reason, because spirit can tweak things and say, right, that's no good, we're going to try this. It's very, very much a team event, isn't it?
We would have referred to it really as a partnership between us and spirit. And it was, we were very much equal in the fact that we were necessary to them and they were necessary to us to achieve the results.
Yeah, and again, that's something that people that set out with physical mediumship, they perhaps don't appreciate how much of a partnership it is at the beginning stages. It's can you describe some of the types of evidence that you got? Because I know Edison turned up, didn't he?
He did, in actual fact. I mean, he actually came forward on a film. Well, he put his name on a film that had never been exposed to light, and on that film, he actually produced a blueprint of a little device that he wanted us to build, which he and we referred to as the transdimensional communication device. And this was a very, very small device, in fact, and it was linked by spirit into all sorts of different areas, including ETs. So we were able, when this became successful, to speak directly to ETs using this device. And built into this device by spirit, along the line, was a system they called IDOLIS, which stood for interdimensional oral language interpretation system. So what was happening was that obviously these ETs that were communicating with us were able to think into this device, but somewhere along the line it came out in a sort of robotic English.
Yeah, and again, I think that's something that most people would be blown away by. I know now more mediums are admitting that there is ET communication. I wouldn't exactly say they are guides, but they are certainly there and helpers. And again, I think people would be astounded that not only does this happen, but people... more mediums now are admitting to that kind of connection, because it was a little taboo at one time, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, if we went back sort of 30 years from here, everybody would have laughed at the idea that you could communicate with other dimensions, and particularly with sort of people who weren't spirit and actually lived in other parts of the universe. But it was actually achieved at Scole. And not only that, but we had solid, or one particular solid ET that sort of was teleported into the room on a number of occasions, and he would stand in front of us. He was a little fellow; he was about 4'6", and he would stand in front of us and pick up our hands and place them on his head, so we could feel that he wasn't at all human. But he also put his picture on a video player, quite animated. And at that time, we were filming in total darkness. And there was an animated picture of this little guy we called Blue, because he was actually blue on the video recording. The main thing about it was that whenever he appeared or whenever he was with us, there was a wonderful feeling of love that came from him, like a real physical wall of love. And that was really something to experience.
I can imagine. I've had some contacts and feelings like that. Epiphanies, really, and the emotion that comes with it is extremely moving. And it's nice to know that. Of course, there are other life forms. If we were the only ones here, then we should treasure that rather than destroying the earth. But it just doesn't make any sense to say that we are alone. But it's nice to know that there is that same feeling there of love and communication with other beings. There is a YouTube. Where is it? I've lost it. It's called the Afterlife Investigations, The Scole Experiment. So if people, if people want to have a look at that, that's about an hour and a half long, and that again is very, very informative, and it's something that I would certainly urge people to look at your site, and of course to sign up to the Spiritual Science Foundation, because we seem to be, we've not peaked, but there seems to be a crescendo building now, doesn't there, with physical mediumship and mental mediumship too.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. But we had so many different forms of physical mediumship, physical phenomena going on. I mean, one of the first things that we got was spirit lights. And we got all sorts of different forms of spirit lights. There was one little spirit light that developed, and it was sort of doing basically aerobatics in the room in front of us. And this thing, you would get up to 30 of these would actually shoot out of the table and then shoot back into it again. And sometimes when they shot back into the table and came out underneath, it would be totally silent. And on other occasions, there'd be a ping as they hit the table and sort of came through it. But we had lights that were rather like a lighthouse effect. We had a glass dome in the middle of our table there. And Spirit were able to light this thing up for up to 2 hours in the end. And you would get a red light that would sort of spin around in this dome, rather like a lighthouse. But also sheets of luminosity. When we had solid spirit people in the room with us, these sheets of luminosity would be there, so we could actually see them, and that was amazing. But we had apports. That's another thing that happens sometimes. That was one of the first things that we started to get. And with apports, basically, they are small presents that come from spirit, although we were told that they're never stolen. These things would just simply arrive out of midair and fall onto the table. And for instance, we had the first apport we had was a coin called a Churchill crown, and we were told that this indicated greater things to come. And of course, greater things did come as everything developed on there. We had pristine newspapers from the 1940s, just as though they were straight off the press. On proper wartime paper, etc. And they were examined by PIRA, which is the Paper Industry Research Association, who were able to say it was genuine wartime newsprint. But what was surprising there was that this was way back in the sort of 1990s. The war had been over many, many years by then. And of course, the type of paper that was available in wartime, as soon as it was exposed to sunlight and air, would go yellow. And because of the impurities in the paper itself. This was pristine when it arrived, but although we sealed it up airtight, it started to go yellow within a couple of days. But it was almost as though they brought those papers from the time of the war. So again, quite amazing stuff.
It is, and again, for people that may not be aware, there is no time in spirit, so that they can effectively produce those papers, it's fairly easy for them because they would just go back to a point when that paper was fresh and, as you say, teleport it or report it. Again, I think people that wouldn't be used to this, although we've covered different things in the show, in other shows, I think people would be quite amazed that things can be taken directly from spirit or taken from here, as you say, not stolen. Sometimes these things are what spirit call unloved. They're just lost or they're left, and they use them and apport them or teleport them here. I think one way of getting people used to that idea, although it's a bit of a strange connection, if they can imagine like Star Trek when they use the teleporters, and these things don't appear in a Star Trek way, I've got to say, but they do appear, don't they, and just drop to the floor, or sometimes they're placed.
Well, that's it exactly. But the Star Trek idea is exactly how the spirit people were teleported into our room during the sessions. We were working in a totally different and new way, which we pioneered with our spirit team.
Yeah, and you know, I'm in great favour of the line of thought that so many things like Star Trek and that there's a great deal of truth to these things. They can't be given as a documentary or as real, so they find a way of bringing those things to the screen in what we generally call science fiction. But there's a lot of truths there, isn't there, in these things? Do you think?
There is indeed, and in fact, Gene Roddenberry, who started with Star Trek, himself got the ideas from sitting in seances.
That would not surprise me at all. That would not surprise me at all. And that's a wonderful little nugget to well, certainly for me to think of it in that, but also for other people as well, because there's one of the things that is quite amazing too is that a lot of the ETs that you see in science fiction films, they're all quite similar, aren't they?
Yes, they are. I mean, basically, they seem to have the same facial features.
Yeah, so again, I think, you know, there's obviously a source that has produced that. We're just going to go into a break in a minute, and we'll be right back with Robin Foy talking about his experiences, the Scole Experiment, and the wonderful world of physical mediumship. So we'll be right back after this.
This is the voice of spirit, your connection to the other side.
To understand something spiritually, you must experience it. And in order to experience it, you have to experience it in your imagination.
Explore with us by calling 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Everything that now exists was once imagined. Therefore, everything that is going to exist must first be imagined.
Back with your guide to spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Leo Bonomo.
After these brief words from our sponsors.
We interrupt to bring you this.
Would you like to advertise on KCOR Digital Radio Network?
This is what I'm talking about!
At a fraction of the cost of traditional radio advertising, why not?
Tell them the good news.
Whether you need to promote your next book, product, or service, we can customize a package for just about any budget.
Finally, there is hope for the hopeless.
Why limit yourself to a tiny local market when KCOR can brand you to the world?
Here's all you do.
Visit KCORradio.com or contact our sales department by email at saleskcorradio.com.
We want it now!
See the difference with us by letting us work for you.
This ain't reality TV!
The KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Hello, KCOR radio listeners. Lori and Fenton here from the Fenton Files. Let me ask you, now that disclosure's happened, what does it mean for ufology? Will it change anything? To get the current disclosure answers and learn of alien encounters, the inside of UFOs, the Anunnaki agenda, California UFO hotspots, and so much more, join me at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th. Visit caufocon.com, that's caufocon.com, and prepare for the truth.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society.
Listen up, everyone!
This is the world-famous KCOR.
That's the only station I listen to.
Thursday nights are about to get weird on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Join hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz as they go exploring the bizarre. Jet across the cosmos with two of the most electrifying paranormal researchers in the known universe. Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. Exploring the bizarre takes you deep within the world of the unexplained. UFOs, ghosts, lost worlds, cryptozoology. It's time to take back the night with hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz. Exploring the bizarre. Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. Only on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Paranormal. Somewhere between abnormal and paranormal.
The U.S. military holds the ability to time travel.
Jeremy Scott asks the questions that we're all dying to know.
Wow, that's a remarkable question.
Watch your step. Hide under your blankets.
The show that is going to make you think.
Prepare yourself for what you're about to hear.
This transmission is coming to you.
You're riding into the paranormal.
Live Saturday night, 6 to 9 on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Welcome back to the Voice of Spirit, your connection to the other side.
There's no accidents in this universe. We all show up here with a purpose. There's an intelligence that is a part of everything and everyone, and all of us are connected to it.
Connect with us on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Even better, join us live in our chat room at kcorradio.com. To get a free reading during the show, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide callers, use Skype name KCOR Radio. And now, inspirational clairvoyant medium, psychic, and your connection to the spirit, the host of the Voice of Spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Welcome back. I'm very privileged and honoured to have Mr. Robin Foy with us, who was in the Scole Experiment. And if you've missed the first part of the show, then do listen to it on archive. And we're talking about physical mediumship. So it's when spirit are actually there and present and giving evidence. We've got the ad there that comes in just after the break. We're not doing live readings this evening, but if you do want to call in the States, it's 702-4259-230. If you have any questions about physical mediumship, especially if you don't know what it is, you'd be very, very welcome to call in. You can come in on the chat room as well, and so we'll be looking forward to that happening. What we're talking about tonight is something wonderful. It's a very pure phenomena, and if you want a chance to be involved, then you can sign up as a member of Spiritual Science Foundation. It's €20 per annum, and you can send that via PayPal to TORCALERO25 @yahoo.com. And if you can't quite get all that, I was going to try and pronounce it, but I don't think I can. You'll also find that on my Facebook page. So if you want to Google Leo, Leo, Bonomo, Bonomo, you'll find me on Google, and you can get these details on the Facebook page as well. So we'll be doing that after the show. That seems a lot for me to say. So welcome back, Robin.
Hi, hello again.
Yeah. So tell us about your first involvement and awareness of spirit and how that came about.
Well, funnily enough, both my wife, Sandra, and I both came straight into physical mediumship at different times, different places, but in exactly the same way. In my case, I mean, I'd been involved, or at least I loved the idea of ghost stories and various things from a very young age. And I spotted an advert in a local paper in Leicester in the UK, Leicester Mercury it was called, asking for anybody that was interested in psychic research to get in touch with a box number. And for some reason, as I was reading this in the personal ads, the advert appeared to me to stand out in bold type. It didn't really, but it seemed to. And I just thought, well, I've got to answer this. I must get in touch with these people. I had a reply from the guy that was running it, a fellow called Elmer Brown, and he'd been running a physical circle for many years. And we were invited along, few people that had answered, to see if we were suitable for the circle. And when we were there, he sort of said to us, well, you know, he explained exactly what physical mediumship was and what they were doing and what they were hoping to get. And he said, well, you know, sort of, would you like to have a look at the room in which we sit? And everybody sort of said yes. Now, the circle room that he had was upstairs, had to go up the stairs through the main bedroom, and it was built in an extension over the garage. So we started sort of going up the stairs in a sort of crocodile, if you like, to have a look at this room. And as we were going up there, I heard a baby crying quite loudly, and everybody around me heard the same thing. And I mean, that was a bit weird anyway, because the house was several hundred yards away from houses on either side, a long way from the road in front, and had a field at the back. So afterwards, I sort of said to him, well, look, you know, sort of, what was that about? And he said, well, that must have been independent voice. The spirit were trying to tell you something. So I thought, well, that's very nice. Thank you very much. And my first wife and I had actually applied to adopt. And a week after I'd been for that meeting to decide whether I could get into the circle or not, we had a telephone call from the adoption agency to say, we've got a baby for you.
Oh, that's wonderful, isn't it?
So that was a fantastic story, really. And, you know, that's how I came into it. And I joined the circle. And I mean, I was in that circle for best part of 18 months in total. But the very first time that I sat in that circle, all the chairs were sort of right against the wall behind us. And nobody could have ever got behind us there. But I had a materialised finger stuck into my back a few times on the first time that I sat there. But this guy, he knew Elmer Brown. He knew Leslie Flint very well. And surprisingly enough, you know, he went down there about twice a year with the group down to London to sit with Leslie. And I'd only been there a couple of months. And of course, I went down to Leslie's. So I had my first opportunity to witness independent voice. And I think on that first occasion, it lasted about 2 hours or more. And we had about 15 spirit personalities talking to us, which was absolutely amazing. I came out of that place absolutely hooked on physical. And I never really got involved at all in the mental mediumship side. And funnily enough, my second wife, who is really my partner in this now, she did exactly the same. She answered an ad which seemed to her to be in bold type, and that was in Romford in Essex of all places. And she walked straight into a circle that was exactly the same as the one I'd been in, a physical circle with a very, very good medium there who was getting good things. And it just so happened that I'd started that circle a couple of years previously. And when she went for her interview, I just happened to call on them. And it all went from there. So, we both got in that way. And I mean, when you think about it, the evidence that you can get through physical is quite amazing. But what a lot of people don't realize is that physical mediumship is still today extremely rare. And not too many people at this point in time get the opportunity to sort of witness it. So if anybody does have the opportunity of visiting a genuine physical medium who's getting good phenomena, I think that it would be very exciting for them to do that.
I think so too. And you and I both know David Thompson. And if anyone wants to go and see a physical medium, it would certainly be someone that I would advocate. David Thompson's excellent. It's you've mentioned something which I find quite amusing. Because you talk about, well, this coincidence and that coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence at all. But spirit, they don't take away a free will, but because we've obviously agreed to this before we've come here. But they have lovely ways of manoeuvring things, don't they?
Yes, they do. But eventually they get what they want. But sometimes it takes a long time to get round to it.
Yes, it can do. Very, very much so. So, and one of the other things as well is that you talked about the type being or appearing to be in bold, and that's another subtle way that spirit will draw our attention to things.
Yes, indeed,
I've been in bookshops before now, and a book's literally fallen out the shelf. And it's like, oh, that looks good. I'll buy that, because obviously Spirit have pointed it out. So when was the time when you first got very, very strong physical mediumship in the Scole Experiment? What was the very first strong thing that happened?
From the time that I was speaking of, basically 45 years ago when I joined my first circle, Sandra and I, we both we married, and it's a second marriage for both of us, but it was intended by Spirit because the combination of the two of us is very strong for the Spirit team. And we've had our own home circles for many years. Some good, some bad, some achieving things, some not achieving too much. We've gone through a whole gamut of different sitters to try and get the harmony that we needed. But Scole was the first indication of getting something really major ourselves. And it started off in 1991. We moved into this place, Scole. There was a farmhouse there which was to let, and we moved in there. And immediately, sort of, at that time, I'd started an organisation called the Noah's Ark Society,
which
was indicated to me by Spirit that we had to do, because they said that physical mediumship was getting to the point where it was likely to disappear. Rather like the dodo, and sort of become extinct. Because of course, all the best physical mediums at that time were all passing into Spirit themselves. So we started this Noah's Ark Society as Spirit requested, and through that we had a little magazine that we started, and a little feature in there saying anybody that wanted to join a circle or a circle looking for a sitter could advertise here. And we did it ourselves. And that's how we put the circle together at Scole. And we ended up with 7 sitters in the first instance. And it developed reasonably quickly. I mean, we started in December in 1992. And then 1993, I think we first started to get some phenomena about May. But the best type of phenomena sort of started around October in 1993. From there on, it developed extremely rapidly. And gradually, people from the circle sort of left the circle, just natural, as time went by. And we ended up with just 4 sitters. And at the time that we had 4 sitters, Spirit went absolutely bananas and developed an awful lot of phenomena very, very quickly, which was quite amazing. And we were told we could then go and do demonstrations overseas, etc., which we did. First place we went to was Ibiza in Spain, because we had a friend who had a villa out in Spain, in Ibiza, and we were invited to stay with him, which we did. And we had about 4 sessions while we were out there, all extremely successful. And we just never really sort of looked back with Scole. It just kept getting better and better all the time. But what they were explaining to us was the fact that what we were doing was working in a totally different way, a brand new way, with our spirit team. And we, as partners, we were sort of, both of us, pioneering a brand new way of working physical mediumship using only energy and not ectoplasm. And it's now established that there are 2 different forms of physical mediumship, both of which are very good and very evidential. But the one that we've been involved in uses 3 different types of energy, which are combined together by the spirit team to create or to produce a creative energy, which they can then use to produce the phenomena. And if you work in this way and develop in this way, you can develop the phenomena an awful lot quicker. I mean, going back to Leslie Flint's days, sometimes it took 10, 15 years to even get anything. Leslie himself took 12 years to develop. And if you work in the newer way, you can do that in months rather than years, and start to get the first phenomena in months rather than years. So there are advantages to it, and it's also very, very safe. Whereas if you're working with ectoplasm, the medium can actually be, sort of be in quite a lot of danger if somebody does something stupid in the circle. But the new way of working, no problem at all.
Yeah, I've been writing a book on developing mediumship, and it's been a long time coming. I think it's about 7 or 8 years old. But I've been teaching myself for about 25 years, and I was speaking then of new energies, different energies, which seem to be manifesting through mental mediumship. So there's a kind of balance that's been struck there, and I just find it absolutely wonderful that spirit, they make changes. I don't think I work the same way now that I did 6 months ago. Sometimes I'm not entirely happy with the way it's gone, and I think we need to back up a little bit. But unfortunately for me, it doesn't seem to back up. It just seems like, oh, well, okay, we'll change it a bit further ahead, Well,
that's right. I mean, they have their own agenda, and I mean, we're always happy to let our spirit team sort of get on with the development the way they want to do it.
Absolutely. Their science is much more advanced. They have the benefit of going to a higher sphere and saying, well, how are we going to do this, and getting advice. Whereas, well, speaking for myself, certainly, we're kind of stuck here, and it's like, well, what do we do? And we try and figure it out, or, as we say, get advice from spirit. It's interesting that you brought up that ectoplasm. It can be quite a dangerous way of working, because some mediums had, unfortunately, skeptics sitting with them who would then try and grab at the form, and serious injuries can accompany that kind of act, or turning the light on.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, there are certain mediums, physical mediums, who actually died because of it in the past, including a very famous one called Helen Duncan, who was a materialization medium.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, Helen Duncan was, I suppose, way ahead of her time at that point, and there was so much evidence coming through that the government of the day, this was during wartime, actually thought that if she herself wasn't a spy, there was a network of spies that were giving this very up-to-date information, and so they broke in on her, and they did 3 things which you shouldn't do during a séance with ectoplasm. They turned the light on. They rushed in and caused a racket, but they also grabbed hold of her, didn't they?
Oh, they did. Yes, yeah.
And it was very sad.
Consequences, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so where do you see physical mediumship going now? Because I know that you've got a new circle now that's developing, and it's a step on, isn't it, from Scole?
It certainly is. I mean, it's going forward, and all of a sudden, from the beginning of this year, our own home circle now, which is called the Scole Experimental Group, is developing at a rapid pace right from only about 6 weeks ago. The phenomena started, and it's developing extremely well.
And I mean, that in itself is a fantastic accomplishment, because I know, I think you touched on it briefly, when Leslie Flint started, he was sitting there for about 10 or 12 years in the circle, and the reason that he sat there was because he was getting biscuits and cakes and a cup of tea in a rather posh little house, and that was unbeknownst to him. That's what he went for. But it took about 12 years, didn't it? And it suddenly just started to come through him. Because again, we have a have it now society, don't we? And everybody expects, well, I'll start this week, and in a month I'll be an expert.
They want instant mediumship, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, instant mediumship, instant fame, and I've heard, obviously the mix wasn't right, but I've heard of people sitting, for 15, 20 years and nothing happening, and they get advice from spirit, of course, but they either don't take it or they just think they know better, which is quite a shame. So
there are 3 vital things, I think, Leo, and particularly if people are sitting for physical mediumship, that every single sitter has to have. First and foremost, they have to be totally committed to it and committed to spirit. Secondly, they have to be totally dedicated to the circle. And thirdly, they have to have a passion for physical mediumship.
Yeah, and I think it's the same to an extent. Well, to a similar extent with mental mediumship.
People. Indeed it is.
Yeah, because people don't realise that. Again, it's not instant. You can't go in and a month later come out. It takes years. I've seen spirits since I was 2. I'm 61 now.
Oh, you lucky fella! I'm 74.
Oh, bless you. You don't look it, I've got to say. I'm truly humbled, because I learn something every day. Mostly what I learn is I don't know anything. Just when I think I've got a crumb of something, I'm shown the cake, and I think, oh my God, there's so much more to learn. So, and it's humbling. But I don't mind that. It's important, isn't it, to keep yourself grounded when doing this, because that can spoil things, can't it?
Yeah, it can. I think you've got to keep a certain amount of humility there.
Definitely. And I've seen in the past, and I'm sure it will happen again, where you need a certain amount of ego to get on a platform. You do.
Absolutely. I mean, it takes a lot of guts sometimes.
Yeah, you need a little bit, but I've seen mediums that have truly believed that it's them that has the power, and spirit will build them up. They'll let them carry on, and they then pull the rug, and it's right. Sad to see that happen, but it's one of those things. Okay, so tell us, we're going to a break in 3 minutes, so we'll just touch on this very briefly. Give us some ideas of some of the evidence that's come through? Because we talked about Edison. You've got video as well, sound recordings.
Well, that's right, absolutely. I mean, the one or two special cases that we had at Scole that gave a tremendous amount of evidence out. I mean, in the case of Edison, for instance, he actually wrote on the film on which he put the blueprint, use this and you'll get good results in the end. And he signed it, TAE, and that was on the film. Now, the SPR guys, that's the Society for Psychical Research guys that sat with us, actually got in touch with the Edison Institute and asked for a copy of a memo that he had signed with his initials. And a copy was sent from a 1926 memo that he'd signed. And when they compared it to the TAE, which was on the unexposed film, which we'd got there, it was identical.
And again, you can't. Skeptics will refute anything. Basically, I feel that they're quite scared that perhaps it is real, and there might be some comeback if they've not led clean lives. I mean, we're none of us are perfect here, So I can. When you get evidence like that, it's very hard to refute. We're just going to go into this break now, Robin, and if you want to call in, it is 702-4259-230, and we'll be right back after this.
You've been listening to Leo Bonomo, the host of The Voice of Spirit. Live every Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the show, guests, and host of The Voice of Spirit, or to book a private reading, please visit leo-bonomo.com. That's leo-bonomo.com. Your connection to the other side is just a phone call away. The Voice of Spirit.
It is amazing, is it not?
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
In the deep recesses of one's mind, there is a voice, a guiding light through the darkness, a connection to the other side.
You're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just poor little me.
A pathway to spiritual that echoes with enlightenment. The Voice of Spirit.
The Voice of Spirit.
You are a function of this total galaxy, bounded by the Milky Way, and that furthermore, this galaxy is a function of all other galaxies.
Your journey starts here and now. With your host and connection to Spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Hi, welcome back to this very, very special edition of The Voice of Spirit. If you're interested, if your appetite has been whet about this and you want to be involved, you can join the Spiritual Science Foundation. It's €20 per annum, which is nothing. And you can send that through PayPal to the email address Torcalero, and it's TORCALERO25 @yahoo.co.uk. So I'll, if you look me up on Facebook, you can find out about my book Summerland there as well. But if you look it up on Facebook, I'll put a summary of the show there, a quick summary, and you can, if you're interested in that, then that'll be fantastic. For anyone else who wants to develop energy-based physical mediumship, if you're into this, then you can download the basic guide, and that was dictated directly by Spirit. So you know what they say about the horse's mouth? It's not necessarily our opinions, it's what Spirit have written, and you can get that from a wonderful, wonderful site called www.scoleexperiment.com. So it's all one word, and that is spelled SCOLEEXPERIMENT. So it's Scole, SCOLE, experiment.com, and that's available for just €10 again. And if you think about it, it's valuable information that is life transforming, and to pay just €10 for it is a true gift from Spirit, I think, as well. There's we were talking, Robin, weren't we, about this a film that's going to be made?
Yes, indeed. I mean, it's in the pipeline at the moment. The two authors that wrote the book The Scole Experiment are the Solomons, Grant and Jane, and they actually have just completed the screenplay for the Scole Experiment film.
That is fantastic, and I'm sure you know. When I wrote, Summerland was written by automatic writing completely in 1987, and as we know, there's no time with Spirit. They picked an opportune moment for the book to come out, and they predicted in the book that lots and lots of films, they've got slightly different connotations, a little bit on the dark side. You know, you've got Charmed and you've got the Vampire Diaries and things, but they predicted a whole plethora of these things coming out. And it's interesting that that film that you're making is going to come out. We've got an animation called Coco, which is coming out. There's another film called Whispers, which is very Spirit connected as well. And we've had some wonderful films since. We've had Ghost, which came out, I think, shortly after 1987. And lots of great films. So it's nice that we've got this complete build up here. It's really taking...
Absolutely. I mean, it's giving the public a very good opportunity to sort of get a foot in the door and learn a little bit about the spirit world, which is actually a natural world. And as far as I'm concerned, and most people involved in this, they'll tell you that the spirit world is actually our natural home. We come here to have a life on Earth from the spirit world, which is our home. And when we pass, we go back to the spirit world. So it's very much our natural home.
Absolutely, because what we spend here, Jimi Hendrix described it as being here for the blink of an eye. And because, you know, we are eternal, none of us can imagine how long eternity is, but we are eternal. And so we are just here for fractions. And you're quite right. This is something that I explain to people as well, that's our natural home. In some ways, Spirit described this, where we are, as a mini death, as a mini death. And because we're very cut off here, aren't we? The senses are very much dulled. All the senses, and when we connect with Spirit, there's a sudden expansion that's there, and because we are going back even for even less of a fraction of time, that connection with Spirit, whether it's physical or mental, fantastic. I was just going to say something, and it's completely gone. Okay, sorry. I've got someone with me that's trying to help me along with this. Right. One of the questions that I get asked with mental mediumship as well, but I think it applies particularly to physical mediumship, and people say, "Oh God, is it scary?" I know it's not, and you know it's not. But would you like to explain? Because people, again, they have this idea, don't they, of I don't know, people, Dracula-like,
sitting round a
walking through
table
walls.
saying, "Is there anybody there?" Yes, of course. No,
That's
that's
Margaret
not how it
Rutherford.
works. I mean,
No.
a circle, as far as we're concerned, a physical circle, it is one where basically we have background music playing. Some of the songs are quite lively in the background music, and we just simply chat and sort of wait for phenomena to occur. And occasionally, spirit will speak to us one way or another and give us a little bit of advice. But it feels absolutely lovely, and you can feel the atmosphere in the room, which is so harmonious and so loving. And I think we should say, perhaps, that in anything where psychic work is involved, love is the key. Love's the key to our life. Love's the key to psychic work. And it's what it's all about. It's what the world should be about. And of course, we're all helping now and trying to get that back onto track, because the world is not in the state that we'd like it to be in.
No, exactly. Yes, it is a very joyous thing, isn't it? And I love that description that you gave of when the ET came forward. That there was just this, I suppose, impact of love overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the feeling, and that's the feeling that everybody gets. I mean, two of our sitters are very new to this, and the latest one, a lady, has never sat in any circle of any sort, and we weren't sure how she would sort of take to it initially, but she was actually, the sort of most natural of all of us. When she first came in, and she's turned out to probably be, have a tremendous amount of potential, and she's just taken it so carefully and no problems, and that's how a lot of people come into it.
Yes, there is a sort of nudging or awakening, isn't there, and that spark of interest. Think, oh, let's have a look, and
particularly when you see something like spectacular spirit lights, it really grabs your attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And whilst we talk about spirit lights, I think a lot of people would understand the term orbs. And as you say, they can be the different ways of expression and different forms. I know I've taken pictures, and some orbs have been huge, literally larger than a mini, and appearing dimpled, and because they have different colours and different textures, don't they? People just imagine a little bright light.
I mean,
around.
The whole idea of spirit orbs has come about mainly since we started to use a different type of camera, a digital camera.
Absolutely, and it is a wonderful thing. I've got a lovely photo of I went to, I can never remember the name of this town. It's supposed to be the most haunted town in England, and I went, not Borley, no, that was the rectory, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
It's another town. I can't think of it. It's irrelevant in a way. But I went there with a friend, and we were going through. Which we went into the pub, and to be honest, I couldn't feel much going on there. But we took a walk through the graveyard, early hours of the morning, and I took a picture of the moon. And this was with a digital camera, and it appeared almost like a ram's head. It was triangular in shape, and I thought what most people would think is, well, I must have jogged the camera. But the lovely thing is, there's a bit of a branch against it, and the branch is absolutely crystal clear. So it's a very strange phenomena that taking this picture of the moon. So spirit can affect all kinds of things. I've had recordings erase mysteriously and that. So did you have any kind of, if I describe that as a problem, it's kind of evidence in a way itself, isn't it? But did you have that kind of effect with anything in the Scole experiment?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we had, from time to time, we had anything up to 8 solid spirit people who had been teleported into the room at one time. Wow. And they were walking around and interacting with us. And I mean, they even if they didn't like the music, they'd simply stop the cassette tape player and pull out the tape and put another one in. I mean, there was no messing about. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they've been able to interact just as though they were sort of still alive. And of course, the way it's done with teleportation is totally different. But it gives them it makes them a lot more versatile, so that they can appear in their normal clothes instead of when you get a medium who's working with ectoplasm. Sometimes when a materialization occurs, they seem to be sort of clothed only in a sort of ectoplasmic cloak of some sort, and that's not at all what we were getting. They had normal clothes, jackets, shirts, so it was just quite normal, and I mean, to have them walking around with you. I mean, I had spirit people holding my hand. I had my mother and father speak to me, sort of on a number of occasions. Amazing stuff.
It is, and I've taken people myself to see David Thompson and his guide William. I've got to say, William must be 7 foot tall if he's an inch.
He's got a heck of a sized hand, certainly.
Absolutely, because when you're sitting on the chair, you're looking up at a very acute angle to where the voice is coming from.
Yeah.
And he said to me the first time I sat with him, he said, "May I touch you?" And they do ask because, of course, they know whether you're going to get freaked or not, but I suppose they have to check. And I said, yes, perfectly. And it was his right hand. And to do that, he must have been standing behind me because, again, as you said, you're sitting against a solid wall, yet a finger comes through and pokes you in the back. And his thumb on his right hand touched the bottom lobe on the right of my head, and his middle finger touched the lobe of my left ear. And he gave it's quite a firm, gave my head a squeeze. And I was really impressed. Yeah, and again, it's solid, it's warm, and of course he does it as evidence. But you're right, William must be huge.
Well, I think he is. Yeah, but the very best physical medium working with ectoplasm today is a good friend of ours. Is a German physical medium called Kai Muger, and Kai's phenomena that he gets is absolutely superb now. Masses and masses of apports. And also a whole number of fully materialized spirit people now.
Yeah, and again, that's fantastic. It is life-changing because, mental mediums do vary. We all have off days. I certainly have mine. But when you go and you see, hopefully a relative, but you see people appear, walk and talk, have intelligent conversations, it is a life-changing moment, isn't it?
Absolutely, 100%. As I say, when the very first time that I went to Leslie Flint, I walked out of there a couple of hours later, and I was just totally hooked on physical mediumship, and I've never really looked back from that.
Yeah, I was quite amazed because when I sat with Leslie, I think there's a doctor
Dr. Marshall, yeah.
Dr. Marshall was there, and I could see him clairvoyantly with his hands behind his back, walking from what was effectively one corner of the room to the other, but above ceiling. And the wonderful thing, I could see him pacing up and down, but you could hear the direct voice moving with him.
Yes, yeah.
And again, it's I think it's particularly hard for skeptics because they jeopardize the environment, don't they? And as you say, what's needed is love. And of course, they get there, they ruin the atmosphere, and they go, well, told you it doesn't work. It's my guide said to me many years ago about skeptics, and it was in reply to a skeptic. So this kind of inspired and came out. It was written actually, and my guide said, the problem with skeptics is they need their kind of proof. only one of us is right. If they are right, they will never know. And if we're right, they've got eternity to think about it, which I think is
yeah.
It's with me, it's kind of an in joke that boy, are some of them going to get a surprise when they get over.
And how, yes.
Yeah, it's but I don't try to convert people, because they've obviously come here needing a certain type of experience.
That's right. I mean, they have to discover things for themselves, and I would never ever try and push things down their throat to sort of say this is what you must believe in and so forth and so on. They have to discover it for themselves, and they have to have a desire really to discover it and to sort of research it further.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. And I'm the same as you. I wouldn't try and convert them. They've got a life to live in that way. I think the thing that I do get concerned about is, of course, skeptics are not like us, and they want to ram their version of the truth down everybody's throat. And I think that's destructive, because sometimes people they want something to cling to, don't they? And if they've seen a medium, and they get a bit of comfort, and then a skeptic comes along and just flattens the whole thing, it's destructive. Okay, so we're just going to recap on a couple of things. If you want to sign up for the Spiritual Science Foundation, it's €20 per year, so it's nothing, and you can make payment via PayPal to the email address I'll have to spell it, I can't pronounce it again. It's torcale25@yahoo.co.uk. And if you have been inspired and or are very curious about developing energy-based physical mediumship, which is as Robin has said is the safest, then you can get a download from the Scole Experiment.com, and that's just €10. And again, a bargain at half the price for life-changing experiences and information. There's also this film that's coming out. I know it takes an awful long time for films to sometimes be developed, because people think it's like, there's a script, get the camera. It can take a long time. You've got a wonderful script, haven't you, that the Solomons are getting together?
The Solomons have written a really good sort of screenplay on this. And we understand that it's currently out with not one but several major companies.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I shall certainly say prayers for it, and I do a lot of manifesting, and sometimes people in a reading, they'll say, well, I really want my boyfriend to come back, or my husband, and it doesn't work like that. But I shall certainly say lots of prayers for that to be to go forward, because it is needed. It's not only life changing.
Yes, yeah.
It's world changing, isn't it? And
it is indeed, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, we've got a few minutes, 3 or 4 minutes to break. Is there anything that you want to mention now that we can speak about in the last segment?
Yeah, I mean, we experienced some unusual phenomena. One of the things that we did experience was musical phenomena, because when we went and sort of stayed in Ibiza, the guy that we were staying with over there actually was, he played in various groups, and he took a trumpet with him whenever we went over to Ibiza. And he asked us if we would mind if he put the trumpet on the table during the course of the experiment. And we said that'd be okay. And he did that. And during the experiment, the trumpet was blown, and not just the trumpet, but a trombone, which wasn't even in the room. We had other occasions where we stayed at his home in Switzerland. And in the cellar that he's got down there, he has about 30 or 40 different musical instruments, including 2 drum sets. And during one of the sessions we had down there, both drum sets were played by experienced drummers and several other of the instruments actually played at the same time. That was quite an amazing thing too.
Yeah, I've actually heard Louis Armstrong sing through David Thompson's demonstration, and he sounds remarkably the same. There is a slight difference in the voice, but you can tell that it's him. And you also hear him play trombone, and that's a trombone in spirit. It's not in the room. And one time there was a drum set there, and it was quite a limited drum set, just a single drum, I think. But then you could hear in the background a full set of drums. And people don't realise how loud some of the manifestations are, do they?
Oh, crikey, yes, yeah. I mean, there was one occasion when we had Maria Callas sang in independent voice, and it was so loud you could have heard it 2 streets away.
Oh, that's brilliant. We're going to go into a break now, Robin, and for anyone, if you want to call in or on the chat line, it's 702-4259-230. Don't miss your chance, and we'll be back straight after this.
This is the Voice of Spirit, your connection to the other side.
To understand something spiritually, you must experience it. And in order to experience it, you have to experience it in your imagination.
Explore with us by calling 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Everything that now exists was once imagined. Therefore, everything that is going to exist must first be imagined.
Back with your guide to spirit, Leo Bonomo.
Leo Bonomo.
After these brief words from our sponsors.
Paranormal radio never sounded so good. Join the hosts of the American Ghost Hunter Show each week as they shoot from the hip without holding back.
They're kind of unpredictable, not like the rest of us.
Live every Thursday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Come hear some of the hottest authors, investigators, as well as TV and radio personalities from around the world.
On the American Ghost Hunter Show.
Our survival depends upon it.
Hauntings, UFOs, cryptos.
If it's branded paranormal, we'll be talking about it. The American Ghost Hunter Show. Live Thursday nights, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The only question you have to ask yourself, are you ready for it?
Yeah! All right!
That's
good.
Turn your radio up. I love it. All the music I want to hear. This is my station.
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about, at least not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
30 seconds and counting.
Broadcasting to you from another planet, beaming you a world of entertainment.
This is the world-famous KCOR. Now listen live online at KCORradio.com.
I like everything about this station.
When do I listen? Like 24 hours a day.
It's my favorite station. I just love the music. It keeps me going at work.
Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific.
Jump onto the celestial highway and travel at the speed of light. Into hyperspace. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. She navigates you through the cosmic tides of mysticism into the world of covert technology, UFOs, mystical sciences, and the world of unforeseen forces.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
Listen live, Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific.
For hyperspace.
The one show that blows the whistle off our government black ops projects. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven.
Solaris Blue Raven.
Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Want to take a ride?
Welcome back to the Voice of Spirit, your connection to the other side.
There's no accidents in this universe. We all show up here with a purpose. There's an intelligence that is a part of everything and everyone, and all of us are connected to it.
Connect with us on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Even better, join us live in our chat room at kcorradio.com. To get a free reading during the show, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Give us a call now.
Worldwide callers, use Skype name KCOR Radio. And now, inspirational clairvoyant medium, psychic, and your connection to the spirit, the host of the Voice of Spirit, Leo Bonomo.
A very great welcome back to the show, and as you know, or if you've just joined us, we're talking with Robin Foy, who's very, very much connected to physical mediumship and some of the wonderful things that come along with it. Robin is trying to open a centre, and we need funds for that. So if you want to be a small part of history, if you want to give donations for the centre to be acquired and funded, and this is not only life-changing work individually if you see physical mediumship at its best, but it's world-changing as well. So if you want to make donations and be a small part of history, then you can donate to the Spiritual Science Foundation. It's €20 per annum, and you can do that through PayPal. And the email address for that, which I'll do a small summary on my Facebook page, so you'll have all this information there. And the email is torcalero25@yahoo.com. So you can make donations to that. I'm sure, and I'm sure Robin will confirm in a little while, if you want to make extra donations to it, you're very, very welcome to. If you're interested in developing energy-based physical mediumship yourself, you can download the basic guidebook, and that was dictated directly by Spirit. So if you've just joined, it's Spirit physically being present and dictating these instructions, and that you can get from the www.scoleexperiment.com. And for life-changing information, it's €10. Unbelievable. Welcome back, Robin.
Hi.
So we were talking about this centre, and it's going to be open for teaching, developing physical mediums. It's going to be open for demonstrations, and again, people of the highest caliber. As a gentleman we both know, Kai Mugger, and so tell us a little more about the centre. And
well, the crazy thing is that this centre was chosen by Spirit about 11 years ago, or at least 11 years ago, should I say. And it's in Antequera in Andalusia in Spain.
Yeah.
Now we were told about this because we had when we first moved over here 11 years ago, we had a Scottish couple came and stayed with us, and they were physical mediums. And through the sittings that we had with them, we were told by Spirit that there was going to be a centre, that we had to open this centre and run it for physical mediumship. And they gave us 25 clues as to exactly where this centre was going to be, although they didn't tell us the name of the town at the time. And when I researched those 25 clues, there was only one place in the whole of Spain that it could be, and that was actually Antequera in Andalusia. And we didn't realise to begin with that they had actually chosen the centre, the premises for the centre at that time. So my wife Sandra and I went down to Antequera for the first time, just to sort of suss the place out and see what it was like. We were immediately taken by the wonderful atmosphere in the town itself. And we arrived there sort of fairly early, and the restaurants weren't really open. But as we moved on from the town, a couple of miles out of it, and there was a restaurant there, and we sort of went to the restaurant and getting quite hungry, and it was actually closed. But there was an old guy that obviously owned it and ran it. He stuck his head out of the window and said, come on in, I'll cook you a meal. And that's exactly what he did. But before we'd gone to Antequera, Sandra had a reading with a very, very good evidential medium in the UK who told her that, and from her mother this was, that the about the centre was that we had to look out for goats with bells on. Now, while we were in this particular restaurant, I was sitting with my back to the window, and Sandra was sitting facing the window, and there was a hill sort of coming down towards the restaurant there. And all of a sudden, Sandra turned around and said, "Oh, my God." And I turned to look, and there was about 500 goats running down. So we took that as a sign from Spirit, obviously, but it didn't hit us immediately that the place we were sitting, that very restaurant, was the very centre, was the very premises that Spirit wanted us to have. And it's only about 4 years ago we discovered that was the case, because another one of our friends told us that when we found the right premises, we would see an eagle flying overhead. So on another occasion about 4 years ago, that we were passing this restaurant, and there was a very big banner up there which said for sale. So we thought, well, that looks interesting, we'll go and have a look. And as we drove up to it, it wasn't open, but we got out of the car, and as we got out of the car, we looked up, and there were 2 golden eagles flying overhead. Oh. So I reckon that was the second sign. And it's been made very plain to us over the last 3-4 years exactly why this centre is needed for us, why it's got to be this particular premises. And the fact that the mountain called the Torcal, which is only a very short distance away, actually has a portal which allows interaction between Spirit and our world. And not only that, but interaction between ETs in our world. So that comes into it somewhere. But it was 6 months ago, really, that I was motivated to start the Spiritual Science Foundation in order to fund this premises. And the amount of money they were asking for it, I mean, it has 8 bedrooms and a massive great downstairs, like a salon downstairs that you could get 200 people in. And there's 6.3 acres of land that goes with it. Plus behind there is actually a small barn which would convert very easily into a proper seance room.
Oh, that sounds
where it's going to be, and the price has gone down gradually, so that now they're asking a lot less for it, and we would only need 300,000 euros to include some improvements to it, and that now is a lot less than you would have to pay for a 3-bedroom semi-detached in the UK.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Well, I know that it will happen because Spirit, I was going to say ordained. That sounds a bit religious, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But Spirit have ordained this. needs to happen, it will happen. So I know that that will certainly be the case. But again, I think if people can understand that this physical mediumship is life changing, it's world changing, and again, if they can be a small part of that, and physically themselves help spirit and help the movement, it's a wonderful thing to be able to do. I know spirits say that if you can help one person in life, one other person, then the life has been successful. I do believe that, but I know that's not strictly true. We can't just do one good deed and think that's it, obviously. But I know that if we can help to do something like this without ego getting in the way, we can do something great for this world. And again, it's not about ourselves. So I think that that's wonderful. Fantastic. Is there anything that you want to add, Robin, about physical mediumship?
The thing is, I think what we should really say what our motivation is, basically. I mean, we have a wonderful spirit team that are working with us now. Our new circle is getting good phenomena at this time, and it's developing so rapidly, it's quite obvious that by the time we get this centre, which we hope to be able to buy and move into before the end of this year, and it's quite obvious that at that point we will be in a position to help many people to understand the reality of life after death. We want to help people because we've been in this with physical phenomena now for 45 years. We've learned an awful lot of things about it, and we now want to we're septuagenarians, yes. So we now want to pass this knowledge on to other people in a practical way, and also, by teaching them how they themselves can get involved in this sort of thing. There are more and more circles starting up now for physical mediumship, and several new mediums are coming about. Whereas back in 1990, it really looked as though physical mediumship was going to die out because the physical mediums that were around at that time were all elderly. They were all dying off. And we needed a new crop of physical mediums, which now, thank goodness, we're getting.
I think that's brilliant. I know there's a similar feeling about mental mediums as well, because you've got some great mental mediums, Gordon Smith and Billy Cook. And I interviewed Billy Cook a short time ago. He's a good friend of mine. I think he said he's did he say he was 67 or 73? I can't remember now. But we're all getting older, and
absolutely, I'm 74, but I'm told I've got to carry on until the work's completed.
Well, I this came out in a Leslie Flint recording, but I know this myself, that if you're useful to spirit, they can extend your life. And we don't do it to extend life, our lives, because I think most of us would think, well, going home can't be soon enough. But they extend our lives, don't they? And keep us healthy.
We've got the short straw, we're the ones that got to go and do it.
That's very good. When I was born, I wasn't very happy, and not because I was a miserable child, but I knew that I felt I'd been sent here. I knew I'd come here. I knew I'd come from my personal view from the stars. I knew I'd come from somewhere else. I didn't want to be here. And then, and then eventually you realise that there's no way out, and you have to do what you have to do. So it's I know spirit have got access to tremendous power. Miracle healings happen, that kind of thing. But yes, it's such a vast.
We saw some wonderful healing ourselves. Because they developed at Scole, they developed this little spirit light. So it was a tiny little spirit light, and everybody could sort of see it while I was moving around the room. But they developed it so it went inside people, and then you could literally feel it going all the way around your body. Felt a little bit like a butterfly inside you. No pain or anything. But it was in there doing its job, and then it sort of fly out of your arm or your chest, and you'd suddenly discover, sort of it had done some wonderful work. And that was one of the things they did at Scole, and I think that they're probably working now toward doing the same thing again.
I would say so. I do remember seeing that film of it, disappearing into a leg and then coming out of an arm and then back in again. And again, if people want to witness that kind of thing, there is a YouTube video called The Afterlife Investigations, The Scole Experiment. And again, it's about 1.5 hours long. It's very, very worthwhile looking at, and bookmarking, because there are some wonderful, wonderful things on there. Okay. Now, we've talked about the centre that's coming, that we know there's a book that's coming. Is there anything else, and the film, of course? Well, it's a documentary. Is it more documentary or film?
No, it's going to be a big screen movie.
Fantastic, because again, I know that the time is right for this. I got quite excited when Summerland, the book, was written in 1987, thinking, right, well, that's it, it'll get printed. And as we know, no time in spirit, and so they can wait 32 years or whatever it was before it comes out. But it's so it's I know the film is going to be wonderful. It's timed perfectly. The genre is really, really hot now. So I know that will work. I think, again, that will be a wonderful thing. Have you got any other things you want to discuss, Robin, at all?
Well, not particularly at all. So sort of any questions that anybody has, I'm always happy to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's sometimes the people are just fascinated and they listen, and it's well, it'd be nice if they sometimes they'll write in, but I think that they're so blown away by this, especially if they've not heard of this before, because it has been something hidden, hasn't it? For a lot of people.
It's been extremely rare, and I mean, physical mediumship still is fairly rare, but the point is now we're beginning to get to a point where we can actually bring it out for the public, and anybody that's interested in researching it can actually witness it. And I think this is very important. When you go back to Victorian times, when there was physical mediumship going on, it was all basically done in people's private parlours, and you didn't get to hear about it too much unless you were in the sort of a particular crowd where you were aware of what was going on.
Yes, and it was entertainment,
wasn't it? Didn't get to hear about it too much.
Yeah, I mean, it was entertainment, wasn't it? It was something to do. So if you had the money,
that's right. I mean, there was a circle in Dunedin in New Zealand in the 1920s. And in this circle, they were getting independent voice in full light, and the medium was a girl called Pearl, who sat down and played the piano, and the independent voices would come and sing at the same time in the light. I mean, that was absolutely fantastic, and they're working back towards similar things happening again, I think.
Yeah, I think with the Victorians, I don't know this for sure, but I'm strongly impressed by this. I think a medium was suggested to a medium that in the dark may work better for them, because I know that a lot of the work was done in the light, and they thought, well, that's good. And then because it was entertainment, or viewed as entertainment, being in the dark, and there was a lot of money to be made. Of course, you got skeptics in, you got fraudsters, and I think that's generally where the whole thing got a bad reputation, unfortunately. But
yeah, you're absolutely right with that. And I think what we have to do now is to actually work towards a position where physical mediumship, where the phenomena is coming out into the light. And I think I think the scenario basically is that spirit will bring their own lights, which is safe to use, and their own lights will be sufficient for you to be able to see what's going on.
I think so, and I think it'll be interesting, that again, if that can be videoed, maybe once or twice a year or once a month or something, especially with the technology we've got today, with clocks on video, at hundredths of a second. That would be something very hard to cut, if we're looking at it from a skeptic's point of view.
Oh, absolutely, yes, yeah.
And I know that that's the way that it will go eventually. And hopefully, we'll get to a point where people say, yeah, that's right, it works. There is another life after, and no real doubt about it. So it's...
Well, I think what will happen is that a certain amount of public figures who have been known sometimes for centuries will actually come and stand in front of us and in front of guests who would have known them, and literally be able to sort of give a talk, which could then be passed on to governments in some cases.
Yeah, I think those that strive for government, I think initially, if they have really good intentions, then that's why they try and get in. But I think, unfortunately, to get anywhere and to have a lot of effect, you tend to have to give in and be corrupted. And I think by the time you've got to that point, there's so much dirt on you, that it makes
that's
it
right.
difficult.
But I mean, I think the point that we're sort of making is that spirit want to bring back personalities who would be well known to everybody. Who could stand in front of everybody, maybe, as you say, in a video, and address the world, and done in such an evidential way that it would prove to the world the reality of life after death, and make some people who are in government at the moment think very hard about what they're doing.
Yeah, because I know Churchill sat with Helen Duncan. There was Airfield Marshal Lord Dowding, who was a spiritualist. There were several of them there, but of course it was very hard for them to operate. And I think you're right. I think the people that are there that know this for sure, if they can get moved, and I'm sure spirit would help move them into positions where they can do some good. I think it's very exciting times.
Well, I know for a fact that it's Winston's intention to sort of appear in a materialized form and speak to people.
I think that would be so inspirational. That would be something I would love to see, and I'm very sure that will happen. I'm sure he was determined enough while he was here. Yes, yeah.
So am I. I mean, this guy Winston, he's been a friend for many, many years.
Yeah, bless him. Because he also sat with Helen Duncan a few times as well. So I know he was in he was connected to spirit. I think that's why he was inspired and allowed to be inspired to make those decisions that he did, because it would have been a very different world. Another famous one, of course, was Abraham Lincoln, wasn't it? Who was
it was indeed, and we also have connections to that gentleman.
That would be fantastic. I mean, that would be absolutely amazing to see personalities of that caliber come back and talk.
That's what's intended, I think. Yeah.
That would be fun. I can just imagine a broadcast, and tonight's news, we have Winston Churchill and his friend Abraham Lincoln. I'm saying that in a joking way, but I think, that would be absolutely mind-blowing. Okay, I think we are, we have reached the end of the show. 2 hours flies by. It's absolutely amazing. I want to thank you on my own behalf so very, very much. It's been wonderful. Bless you. It's been such an inspiration for me. I know for others as well. Hopefully you can come back on this show and we can certainly talk again.
Yeah, hope so.
You've been listening to Leo Bonomo, the host of The Voice of Spirit. Live every Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the show, guests, and host of The Voice of Spirit, or to book a private reading, please visit leo-bonomo.com. That's leo-bonomo.com. Your connection to the other side is just a phone call away. The Voice of Spirit.
It is amazing, is it not?
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.